Hi, this is Jose Palomino with another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. And my guest today is a real special guest, somebody who I've known for a number of years, just one of the best strategic thinkers in the area of strategic sales, the complex sale. Alice Heiman is joining us, and she's going to tell us how it's really not the customer's job to know how you should sell to them. It's your job to know how they want to buy. We're going to go deep into this topic right now, so let's welcome Alice to our show. Well, welcome, Alice, to the Revenue Throughput Podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
No, fantastic. Well, Alice, one thing that's very helpful for listeners just jumping into an episode
Yeah.
is for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you work with and to set the context.
Yeah. I work with the CEOs of innovative companies who have a business to business complex sale, who are trying to increase their revenues dramatically. And so these companies are usually owner led and investor backed. And they're between 10 and $100 million in revenues, but they want to double in size to make their investors happy, to make exit possibilities or other possibilities. So they have more freedom. So it's really fun to work with them and help them set up their sales organization to get a high valuation because they've increased their sales.
So in that size company, it sounds to me that you're talking to people that are pretty more self-aware than a lot of smaller companies in the mid-market that would like more sales, but they're not as specific. Like, I want to double, I'm heading toward an exit, I have investors holding me accountable. Would that be
Right.
accurate that the people you're working with generally are a little bit more aware of that they have to do something significant to get there?
Yes, I think that they're more aware and they know that they need a strategy in order to do that. And they may not know exactly which strategy would be the best. And that's where I come in and try to help make sure that, they're going towards their goals as quickly as possible and in the most efficient way, right? Because there's a lot of ways we can get there and we can weave and dodge, but that won't be as productive. So we want to get them straight to the mark as quickly as we can.
Now, are these companies typically newer, like technology oriented, or are some of them also old school, like traditional manufacturing and things like that?
Well, all the companies I work with are 5+ years old, but you'd be surprised because many of them are 10 or 20 years old. I have one company that's 60 years old that the son purchased from the dad.
Okay.
So they're not young companies, but they do have great ideas of ways that they want to grow and things that they want to do. And because they're more mature, they may have funded themselves or they may have taken on some private equity so that they could make some acquisitions or grow in some other ways. Maybe like some of them have grown really well without having a really big customer success department. And now it's time to really bring in customer success to retain their customers, grow their customers, and build them into a loyal customer base.
So that's interesting. This term, my friends who are in like large corporate enterprise sales operations, customer
Yeah.
success has been around as an idea for the last 5, 10 years.
Right.
But I find in the small and mid market as a thought, I mean, they understand the words, but they don't understand it as a function. So what do you see as some of the big challenges? Is it a cultural challenge? Is it, you mean I have to put headcount on that? I mean, what are some of the challenges to get to customer success? Because it seems like that's one of the keys to that kind of growth.
Well, I think it's different in different organizations. And again, depending on the maturity. In the beginning, where companies are really having rapid growth, and especially if they have investors, it's more of a land grab, get new logos,
Mhm.
right? And once you've landed those logos, just keep going and get more. Don't necessarily nurture the ones that you have. But we know that that's not a long term strategy for success. We have to keep the customers that we bring in as well. Now, remember that I only work with a business to business complex sale. So these are companies who are going to spend, 50,000 to 150,000 to $1 million with a company, and over their lifetime they'll be worth millions. So we definitely want to retain them. We definitely want them to become loyal, because in that loyalty, they'll buy more, they'll try our new products, but they'll also be willing to introduce us to other people, which is a much easier way to get new business than if have to go out and cold call, which, as we know right now in this economy, the cold outreach just really isn't working anymore. I mean, it works, but you need tremendous volume to get it to work.
It's a
So we need
scale.
better
Yeah.
ways, right, to scale. And introductions are a much better way to meet someone than to cold call them. So I'd say customer success has become even more important, although it's always been important. And I think in the smaller, younger companies, less mature companies, they haven't quite gotten there yet. They kind of expect their sales reps to do both.
Hmm.
Maybe they have sales development reps who are getting the appointments, but then once the salesperson gets a customer, they're supposed to keep them as well. But I think now the future of sales is really more revenue operations, and the leadership would have customer success, sales, and marketing all reporting into the same place and working together in a different way, working together in a way that ensures the customer is engaged and ensures that we deliver an exceptional customer experience. So I think that is a much better way to look at things, probably always has been. And I think that you'll find the companies who have lived through the ages, who are 80, 90 years old, 70 years old, have always thought this way, have always been more built around the customer. And these younger startups are now starting to catch on. If you want to be sustainable, you want to last through the test of time, you are going to have to re-engage your entire team around the customer and how the customer wants to buy, and really think about customer engagement from the moment you say hello until through the life of the customer, as long as they stay with you, which hopefully is a long, long time.
Now, Alice, I hear that, and I'm visualizing maybe not at the $100 million side, which might be a more sophisticated operation, just
Yeah.
because of scale and they have more leadership team and so on. But maybe more that 10 to 15, $20 million company. Hearing that and feeling, I could just feel the weight of it hitting them, saying like, I got
Yeah.
to do what? And I got to do how many things and so on. So, what would you say to that person that feels like this is just too much you're asking of me to do? We provide
Yeah.
a good product at a good price. We have good sales reps, and somebody has a problem, we take care of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good place to start. I would say just grow into it. So don't try to be there now. Try to grow into it and think about what the future looks like. So when you are a 20 million, 30 million, $50 million company, now some of you may never want to grow that big, and that's fine. But if you are trying to scale and you are trying to grow, think about growing into a place where it's all about customer engagement. But truly, you can do it now. If you just kind of reset a little bit the way sales and marketing work together, and if you have some sort of customer support or customer success, even if it's just one person, but thinking about the way that you're building that out, and just map the whole process with your team and say, okay, from the time we say hello and they know who we are, which would probably be marketing, or it could be a salesperson doing marketing, like
Hmm.
posting things on LinkedIn or something, but that attention grabbing activity that we do, whether it's sales or marketing, from that moment, let's just map how we interface with our customer and find out if there's anything we can do with the existing team we have now to improve customer engagement. And I'm sure there are a lot of things you could do to improve customer engagement without hiring one more person and without making any major changes. Just think about even the words that you use
Mm.
when you engage the customer at the very beginning of the sales cycle or the buy cycle, right? What words are the salespeople using? What words are the marketing people using? And maybe tie those more closely together. Maybe take a look at your website to see if it supports the customer journey the way you really want it to, and make sure that your website says the same thing that the salespeople say. So there's no disconnect when a buyer is engaged and then they talk to your sales rep and then they go look at your website. Make sure that experience is very similar and they get the same messaging. Those are things you can do without spending a lot of money or time or hiring more people.
Well, it's interesting when you mention that because I've done a little bit in the area of like customer service, leading
Yeah.
into customer success with folks. and you talk about messaging and just adding one question at the end. Is there anything else I can do for you? And making
Yes.
sure you do that consistently. I'm not saying it's magic, but it's just a thought. Like, what would the
Right.
impact of that? And then you ask the owner, well, how many times are you having these conversations? And they say, well, I have three customer service people. They're on the phone all day. So I said, that's like 100 opportunities to ask, is there anything
Right.
else I can do for you? And
That's right.
if you don't ask, you won't hear it. So I really love your message here, Alice, in
Yeah.
that small things can be done
Right.
if you by will. Like, you could decide to do it, and it doesn't mean you're hiring a bunch of people or you're spending a
No.
ton of money, and it can have some real high impact.
And
So,
even if just a couple of times a year you ask your existing customers, how's it going? What else can we do? That's better than nothing, right? And I'm sure you're all doing that, but do it intentionally. Build a plan, build a process, and do it intentionally so that there is someone, even if it's the sales rep and it's their responsibility, who's checking in with that customer, adding value, not just, hey, I'm checking in, because no one has time for that. But I would like to add some value here now by teaching you something else about how to use our product, or helping you engage your constituents with our product, or user adoption, whatever it might be. If you're offering that up to them and asking them what else you can do, they at least feel like you're paying attention.
well, that's interesting because and this harkens back to, I think, one of your very beginning comments, lining yourself up with the buyer's buying process.
Right.
So historically, and I'm not saying it was ever right, but the sales language was always like, your sales process, like how we're going to move prospects through our funnel.
Right.
But the buyer has so much more power and control. By the time they're even talking to you, they already know more about your product than most people in your own
Yeah.
company. So how does that mind shift in the size companies you work with? How do you help them shift for those that are stuck in a sales
Yeah.
centric versus customer centric mindset? What advice do you have for them? Like, how imperative is it that they make the shift, and how would you advise them to start thinking about that shift?
Well, it's it's imperative, period. I mean, you have to do it. Look, when I was young and I was selling, the people who were buying from me had no other way to find out about my products and services. There was no internet.
Hmm.
Maybe in some cases, companies had catalogs and they would mail them in the mail, or they would mail a postcard, or they would do a direct mail piece to the customer. And then the salesperson would call on the phone or show up and see them either at their office or at a trade show or at an event. And in order to learn about all of the new solutions that were out there, and my solution, you had to talk to me. You had no choice, because that's the way you would learn about the products or services. But today, and for many years now, the buyer has had many opportunities to learn about you if you're out there, right? They can look you up in the internet. You may still be mailing them things. They can look on social media and learn about you. They can read in the news about you. So, with that, people want to take their own journey when they want to buy something. And we take a note from business to consumer, right? What do I do when I want to buy something? Well, me personally, I start Googling, and then if I can't find what I want from that, I'm going to start calling my friends and asking them, where do you purchase this, or what place do you like to get that from, right? Well, in business, we're still the same humans we are when we are purchasing something for ourselves. We purchase in much the same way, as we do, in consumer purchases when we're in business. So we have to remember that there are human beings making decisions here, and they're going to do things in the way that's easy for them, the way that they can understand. So they're going to go look on the internet. They're going to Google. They're going to ask other CFOs they know, or other CMOs they know, or other directors that they know. What do you use? How do you use it? Have you ever worked with this company? Do they keep their promises? They're going to ask around, and they're going to look on the internet and research to see if you have any bad comments. So they're going to do a lot of this on their own. Now, the good news is they may come to you that way, which is great. The bad news is they may never find you, and or they may have made an opinion which isn't really exactly quite right based on their own research. And so this is why we have to be ever present, right? So if we do a great job of targeting who our ideal customer is, and we, know who they are, and we figure out ways to build our brand awareness with them, help develop their interest, right? We're out there where they can find us and communicating with them, not necessarily selling at that point, because we don't even know if they need to buy from us yet, but they're aware of us, right? In that awareness, when they do have the problem that we solve, they're more likely to come to us. So we really have to think about how we're showing up so that people can find us, and then just be there, be there, be there. Not always asking them to buy, but providing something that they need, something of value, some content, something interesting, something intriguing, right? So if you want people to be interested in you, you have to be interesting. And you need to have messaging that tells them you know who they are and what they need, and that you can help them. And if you're doing that, right, then you're drawing those people to you. So yeah, I mean, we've got to be out there thinking about the customer and the way that they buy. Absolutely.
So what's fascinating about that is, in many ways, it redefines marketing, at least as it relates to a lot of these owner-led businesses, how they look at marketing expense. They want to see a direct correlation to the
Yeah.
marketing expense and like lead
Right.
generation, which is a subset. But in reality, what you're saying is a lot of what we would traditionally call marketing, what's on our website, if we do trade shows, if we publish anything, to create alignment and awareness. That's like step one. Just we're in the
Right.
game. People
Right.
can find out about us. And if they can't, they won't, we're not even in the game, right?
Right.
And
Well,
then
and this is why sales and marketing really, the lines have blurred, and we cannot live in silos anymore. We never really could, but we did, right? We had marketing over here doing their thing, sales over here doing their thing. No more. We have to work together, and it's already blended. I mean, salespeople are doing marketing. Really, they always have, right?
right.
Because anytime you're cold calling or doing cold outreach, you're trying to build brand awareness.
Sure.
That's the first thing you're doing. So but the lines have blurred even more with social media, and where salespeople can be publishing things and interacting in a different way with potential buyers. So sales and marketing need to work together on that journey and figure out where they can intersect. But not just that, but all the way through the life of. So, like I said earlier, from hello to I'm your loyal customer. What is sales doing? What is customer success doing? What is marketing doing? All along the way, each of those departments plays a role, and the lines have blurred again. Like we have hunters, they're out there, account executives, then we have account managers who are more what we call farmers, and they're taking care of the existing customers. But then what does customer success and customer support do? Well, they have a different role, right? So account managers are keeping in touch with the senior executives and growing, helping grow, but customer success should be right there behind them, helping them do that and interfacing with people at a different level. And customer support should be there for the technical issues and problems or that may arise, or have somebody in a seat who can answer the phone and make sure the customer gets what they need. But that sounds like a lot of people, and especially if you're small and growing, but there's a place for all of them, all the marketing, the digital marketing, the mail, all the different ways that you market, all the different ways that you sell, the ways that you support the
And the
customer.
reality is
All
too,
of it.
Alice, that a lot of these organizations are already making the investments. I mean, they have a sales team, small or
Right.
whatever. They have somebody answering the phone, customer service. They have
Yeah.
somebody erstwhile doing social media coordination or website design or something like that. So it's not that they're not making the investments, but they haven't necessarily seen them as a cohesive
No,
unit working
they're
together.
not talking to each other. How often does a salesperson talk to a digital marketer? Like maybe never.
Right, right. So one of the questions then is what skill set, and maybe we'll kind of zero in on this as we come to the end of our time. And Alice, this is a fantastic conversation. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. But what primary skill set do you think an owner, CEO, leader needs to say, I have to be ready to do this if I'm going to enter this new world?
Um, Skill sets. Okay, so interesting. So one of the things that I really believe is that a CEO needs to be more involved in sales. And oh my gosh, they're going to be like, are you kidding me? Why would I want to be more involved in sales? I'm trying to pull myself out of sales so that I can run my company and be the visionary and be the person who's, helping grow, things other than just sales. Right. So I think though that we have this idea of chief revenue officer.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost think in a small company, it's a bad thing to go out and hire a chief revenue officer. The CEO should really be playing that role up until a certain point, right? And then, when you're larger, you do need someone to play that role. But I think we need to become more strategic at the senior level, whether we have a CRO or whether the the CEO is going to play that role. We do have to be more strategic. And in that, thinking about the customer, the way the customer wants to buy, the way we interact and interface, and the way the customer engagement works at our company. So all of that is maybe a little bit of a different skill set because it's more strategic, which, a CEO should be strategic, but we need to help our sales leaders be more strategic. And what I'd like everybody to think of is being in charge of sales versus sellers. Because when we're just in charge of sellers, we're just thinking about salespeople, hiring them, onboarding them, training them, and having them go out and do their thing and go get business, right? But when we're thinking about sales, we think more about the customer and the way the customer wants to buy. And sellers are one piece of that, one small piece of it. There's all of the other pieces, like we were talking about with marketing and customer success as well. So, and if the customer wants to interface with us on our website and have more media to look at before they talk to a salesperson, we need to provide that as part of sales, right? So I think that changing the mindset is definitely something that needs to happen. Really understanding the customers, and another skill set would be training everyone about the day in the life of your buyer. So the people who typically spend money with you, the decision-making group, the titles of the people who commonly buy from you, right? So that whole group, if your sales and marketing and customer success people understand what their life is like, in terms of like, what do they do every day? So if you have your salespeople calling on chief marketing officers, but your salespeople have never been a chief marketing officer, right? How do they know what it's like, what other decisions are being made, what the purview is of a chief marketing officer, what their day looks like, and how you're interrupting their day with your messaging, and how once they're into the buying cycle, what things does a CMO think about? What concerns do they have? Who do they report to? How do they make decisions? Who reports to them that's going to help?
And how big a priority is what you want to talk to them about to them?
Right.
I know it's a big priority to me because I need to talk to that CMO about this thing. But to them, it might be a relatively minor thing that's going to be hard to get their attention. If I don't know that, then I don't know how I'm going to actually approach it. So I think that's really brilliant. And I love the day in the life of your buyer. I find too often, and I know you do too, Alice, professional salespeople know very little about the customers they deal with every day. And it always astounds me. They just don't understand what they actually do. They only see them through the transactional box or the lens of what they want to talk about. So this is a really
and I gotta say that is not the salesperson's fault. That is our fault as leaders for training them that way. We bring them in, we onboard them, we train them on our company, our products, our services. We train them, on, pitching, what to say, right? So they're trained to do that, even though we think we're training them to be more consultative or collaborative. We're training them to be very transactional. And then we're pressuring them to be transactional. Get those deals closed at the end of the month. Let's go, right? Let's go. So every company that I've ever worked with, I've heard CEOs say, what is it going to take to close that deal? Get it closed, right? So if you're thinking like that, then that's going to be a tough way to go these days, because customers are not fools, Oh, you're lowering the price. It's the 30th and you're lowering the price. Let me see. Right. So you're either going to train them to wait till the end of the month or always ask you for a discount. Or a lot, I've lately had them say, salespeople saying to me, well, the CEO told me to lower the price, and the company's now mad at us for lowering the price at the 11th hour. because now we have to go through a whole nother procurement process and do all of these
And
things.
if
And
you
I'm
were
like,
willing to
yeah,
do that all along, why didn't you offer that at the beginning?
right. There's so all kinds of issues with that. So really, if we are stay customer focused from the beginning and understand a day in life of the buyer, then we also understand, and this is one of my favorite things to say to CEOs, close dates come from customers, not quotas. You go set all the quotas you want. That's wonderful. But your customer is in charge of when they buy. Now, you can know when they're going to buy if you're smart and you use tools like a mutual action plan to carve out, exactly what's going to happen by when with your customer, make it very transparent to them. Using those mutual action plans, or MAPs for short, you can know when the close date is, but you don't dictate the close date. Close dates come from customers, not quotas. So teach your salespeople, train your salespeople to be more customer focused, engage the customer all along the sales process, and help the customer understand what the buying process is going to be like, what needs to be done by when, because the customer has a date by which they need to have purchased, right? Either because they have an event, because something has to be installed, because other things are hinging on this purchase, right? And so you've got to help them know how to get there efficiently and be ready on the date they need to be ready. Now, some of my clients say, well, we have a nice to have, not a need to have. So there's no real date, right? It would just make their life better. So they need to get it done. Okay, well, there's still something they want to do better by when. Like, so if it's going to impact their revenue, for example, but they don't have to do it, but still, how soon would you like to start impacting your revenue?
Right.
Let's get this tool up and running so you can do that. So you can help guide them, and you can know what their close date is by asking them, but you don't control it. They control it. And that's why, I don't even want to start down this path, but quotas are just, so 1980s.
Wow. Oh, that's a whole nother podcast. So thank you, Alice, for that. So we are out of time here, and you've been so gracious with sharing so many. I mean, I've just have pages of notes here, so it's fantastic stuff. Thank you so much, Alice. Really appreciate you taking the time with our audience on this episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast, and look forward to connecting again.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure talking about my favorite topic. Like, who doesn't want to do that?
Great. All right. Take care.